Entrepreneur MBA podcast purpose is to help existing business owners grow their companies past the 10 million in revenue per year benchmark. Here is your host, Stephen Halasnik.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Stephen Halasnik, and I'm co-founder of Financing Solutions. Financing Solutions provides easy to set up business lines of credit for small businesses, and I will be your host for today's Entrepreneur MBA podcast. If you're interested in learning more about a business line of credit, which I would highly recommend, I've always had one, please visit fscreditline.com, FS as in Financing Solutions, creditline.com. We are a direct lender. Over the last 25 years, I have built 6 companies in the $5 million to $25 million range, including 2 companies on the Inc. 500 fastest growing company list in the United States. I love learning from people with business experience, and today I'm very excited to be speaking with Colin Shaw from Beyond Philosophy. LinkedIn has recognized Colin Shaw as one of the world's top 150 business influencers, where he has 291,000 followers. Shaw's customer experience consulting company, Beyond Philosophy LLC, has been recognized by the Financial Times as one of the leading management consultancies for the last 4 years. Shaw is also the co-host of the Intuitive Customer podcast, rated in the top 5% of all podcasts by Buzzsprout. Colin, welcome to today's Entrepreneur MBA podcast.
Thanks for having me, Steve. I'm looking forward to this. Thank you.
Me too. So today's topic is how the hidden customer experience drives growth. And, it's never a bad idea to focus on your customer, isn't it?
I think I'm biased, but I think it's the most sensible idea. Because without your customer, then you got no one to buy anything. So I would have thought it's incumbent upon all businesses, no matter what size. But interestingly, it seems that the larger the business gets, the more problems that they have in focusing on the customer. Absolutely.
The problem too is, as a business owner, especially a small business owner, and believe me, this doesn't make a difference if you're working for a huge company, if you're the CEO of a huge company versus a small company, you get just so distracted with the problems that are going on in your business that you don't focus on the customer. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, yes. So I totally agree with that. I think the other issue is that you just get further away. So, when you think about when you start your own business, you're talking to customers all the time. Think about the largest organizations that there are. They don't talk. Senior people tend not to talk to customers.
Yep.
And therefore, it just becomes very internally focused.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. And then you get into that whole bit about this sort of hidden experience, which is, do they really understand why people are buying from them? And typically, a lot of organizations don't really understand some of those real reasons that people are buying from them, and think it's just down to price.
Yeah, my first 8 years of my career, I worked for Xerox, and I've mentioned this before on my other podcast. Xerox, depending on how much snow you have on your roof, I'm talking about gray hair. Xerox was the Google of its time, and so the CEO, the CEO for a large majority of my career there was a guy by the name of David Kearns, who no one would know, but I really liked David Kearns a lot. But whenever he would make it a point. Now, again, Xerox at the time was a $10 billion company. This is 30 years ago, so that was quite a bit of money. He would force himself to once a week travel with one of the sales reps to a client. So he could stay in touch with his, that's a really, and this is a guy who's, that's a lot once a week for someone to go out.
And that is a really good practice. Most organizations their senior people don't spend time with clients. Some organizations like Xerox, as you're saying there, and ironically, I used to work for Xerox as well back in the day.
Cool.
But they put things in place. Some organizations Disney, for example, would ask their people for 2 weeks every year to go and spend time in the Disney theme park. Pret a Manger will buddy their people up in head office with people in the stores. And they do those things sensibly to keep that connection between the customer and the decision making, effectively the senior teams. It's when you get, dare I say, and this has always been a bugbear of mine, cable companies who try to keep away as much as they possibly can from customers, and then they don't understand them basically. And you've got to work. The larger you get, the more work you have to do on being with a customer. Basically, simple as that.
Yeah. So, I think a lot of our listeners would say, well, Steve, I really don't have that problem. I kind of know exactly what's going on with my customers, because when you're smaller, you tend to be very, very involved. But let's take it another step further, and I'm going to test your brain for a second, and maybe I can
Sure.
help you brainstorm on this. Tell me what you think you should know about your customers.
So let me tell you a little story. I've been married for 40 years. Okay?
Congratulations.
Thank you. When I walk home at night and I walk in the front door and I shout hello to Lorraine, my wife, within a one-word response, I can tell you how she's feeling. Even if if she says, I'm feeling fine, I think, nah, you're not feeling fine, are you? Okay. And I know what I should do if I wanted to, which I don't want to make matters worse. I know what I should do. And I also know what I should do if I want to make her feel better. Okay. Now, why do I tell you this? I tell you this because most organizations look at their customers as if they are rational, transactional things, particularly, I have to say, in the finance market. They tend to be very transactional in their approach and tend to process customers. Okay. So when you ask the question about what is it we should know about customers, well, we should know what they are asking for, but we should also recognize, and this is in the title of this podcast, this hidden bit, okay, which is we should know what they really want, not what they say they want. So I've written 7 books on the subject of customer experience, okay, and one of them is about customer centricity. So I always find it a bit odd when I say this. And that is, sometimes you shouldn't listen to what your customers tell you, okay? You should sort of read between the lines, as I do with Lorraine, my wife, and understand what she really means, not what she's telling me. So, and let me give you an example from a business setting. Disney know when they ask their customers what they want to eat at a theme park, Disney know that people say they'd like to have an option of a salad. Disney also know that people don't eat salads at theme parks. They eat hot dogs and hamburgers. So if you based your decisions just on what customers told you that they were going to buy, then you would end up in the park with loads of salads. Run out of hot dogs and have loads of salads left. Okay. And therefore, what we found is there's this sort of hidden experience, and what I mean by that is understanding that customers, and again, this particularly, I think, in the finance world that you're in, and I'm sure you can comment on this. It's the classic stuff of people buy from people, people. When you start to look at customers, they're not just making a decision based upon the price, and they're making a decision that is also based upon, do they trust the individual that they're dealing with? Do they feel the individual that they're dealing with cares for them as a person? Now, they may not articulate those things, but those are the things that truly drive human behavior. So, yes, it's about the product or service, but it's also equally as important to look at how a customer feels and look at some of that psychological part of things, which is why do people do what they do? From a psychological perspective, and we like to think we are logical animals and we make logical decisions. And I'm sure that some of your listeners are sitting there going, "Yes, my customers make logical decisions," but they don't. Human beings are complex animals who have evolved over millennia, and we make decisions that are influenced by many different things that we don't realize ourselves how we make those choices. So, understanding all those things, I think, is the important thing. So, sorry, it's a long answer to your
No,
question, but
it's a
I
good
hope that's
answer. I think
the
it leads us into the next kind of area that, and that is, let's go back. And I think you're, listen, I am a big fan of data, right?
yeah,
But I think at some point you have to use your intuition too. And so let's go back to the McDonald's example with the salad and the hot dogs and the hamburgers. You know, I get really turned off when a theme park, and I may not go to a theme park if they don't
yeah,
have options for me that are healthy. And
sure,
so what I would say, like, don't just show me a salad, show me a salad that's enticing.
yes,
And that don't just throw a bed of lettuce there and say that's a salad. Make it so that I like, that's what I want to order, right? And also
yes,
for my kids too. Give me some options for my kid, because everybody who I know, very few people I know are super health conscious like maybe I am, and my wife. But when we bring our kids, we want some options. You
yes,
know,
yes,
you know.
yes.
So
I agree totally.
and so
So,
they got
I
to
think
deal.
what you're
Sorry.
It's all right. I think what you're talking now about is effectively a segmentation. Okay.
Yes.
So you can't have one size fits all,
No.
whichever way you want to do it. If there was, let's assume, and I don't know, I don't run theme parks, but maybe there should be a restaurant within the theme park that is very healthy.
Yes.
Maybe there are 10 other restaurants that
Yeah.
aren't for the majority of the people that aren't. But there's a one that is very health conscious. So
That's a good idea. Yeah.
you start to segment basically.
Yeah, and I think so. So I like that's a good way, because that's where I was leading toward the idea of segmentation, and that is, and maybe that's not the right word, but it's you. I think you have to really dive into the complete customer experience from the time when they're, let's just use Disney for example, but the time when they're getting out of their car in the parking lot, walking. I think you need to look at every little and listen, let's face it, I don't need to tell Disney what the hell to do. They're amazing, right? um, but you got to know every little detail from every little perspective. And so I'll give you a different perspective. Let's bring it back to small businesses, which is what our listeners
Sure.
are from. So I am Financing Solutions from an employee standpoint is a very, very small company, my company, right?
Yeah.
We want that. We don't want a big company, right? And we are providing lines of credit, and it's our own money. We're putting our
Yep.
own money out there. And so, I have a business partner and me and a couple of other key people, but I actually talk to our prospects and clients every day. Like, I don't mean every day.
Right.
I mean, I am the person that you speak to when you're thinking about getting the line of credit. And let me tell you why. If what we would and I can't give you a statistic because I've never done it, but it is obvious to me that if we just send the offer out for the line of credit based on an algorithm, right,
Yep.
the close ratio goes way down.
Yes.
When I get on the phone and I talk to that prospect,
Yes.
right, completely different close ratio,
Yes.
huge,
Yes. And
90%.
and to, yeah. And Stephen, you're proving my point. because there's the transaction, which is the offer, which could be sent out electronically, but then there's that human bit, okay, which is the intangible. Do I trust this person?
Yep.
Do I think this person understands my business?
Yep.
And here's an important one, when something goes wrong, do I think they'll have my back and be
Yep.
there to help? Another thing I would suggest from your business, this is their own money. This is not just, I'm not just the manager of a store or whatever else, and therefore, it's not my money. This is your money. Okay. So, and the other part, sorry, my brain's starting to come up with all these things. The other part is he's spending time with me. He owns the company and he's spending time with me. The implications of that are he cares enough to do that. He's not just someone that's going to sit in an ivory tower. So I think there's one part of it, which is the transaction, and we know about that. The other part of it, which organizations don't consider enough, is that personal, emotional connection. So we do a piece of research and we over lockdown we analyze this data that we've been collecting literally since 2005 on emotions and which emotions drive value. Okay, and what we discovered was that 48% of what drives value, in other words, money, share of wallet, loyalty, whatever else, is driven by emotional connection. Exactly what you're just saying. Okay. And lots of businesses don't think that. So the organizations you're talking about that just send off the email, go and, this is where we get our business. We go and talk to them. To be honest, mate, I wouldn't come and talk to you because you already know it. Yeah. But it's those other organizations that are losing touch. And again, this touches on the large organization versus the small. Because I would say to your listeners that the danger is that when you start to become large enough that you need to automate things, that's a danger point, because you're exactly what you're saying here. You're automating the transaction. And let me give you an example. This was about 10 years ago. In England, we used to get our milk delivered, okay, because it's never hot enough for the milk to go off. So we used to get the milk delivered. And I said to my wife one day, I said, look, why are we getting the milk delivered? We might as well just go and buy it down at the grocery store like everybody else. And she said, no. She said, Kevin comes around on a Friday night. He collects his money. We have a bit of a laugh and a joke, and I enjoy that. So I don't want to change the milk. Kevin, milk sales decline. Kevin changes job. New guy comes on. He determines that a more efficient way of doing things is to leave the copy of how much we owe him underneath the milk bottle, and he asks us to write a check for the amount and then leave it in a safe place. Friday night chat with Kevin is gone.
Gone. Yeah.
Within 2 months, guess what happened?
Yeah.
We stopped dealing with him because the value was actually in the interaction, not in the delivery of the milk. He thought we were buying milk. We were actually buying 10 minutes of fun and banter at the doorstep, basically.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of impact, and so I know why our clients want to talk to someone. So the first thing before I even get there is, number one is, so I have two things to say. The first thing is, it is a strategic advantage for us versus our competition that you are talking directly to the owners. It's a strategic advantage. Okay. Now, at my very first company, I thought, I don't want to be involved in the business. The key to, at the time, I thought a successful business, and the word on the street for small business is you should be working on the business and not in it. Right.
Yeah.
That's that concept. I believe in it. Right. However, what I've learned is your small business is never going to be a $50 million business. It's never going to be a $100 million business. And, it's so far and few between. Okay. Financing Solutions is a $25 million company. Okay. Now, again, in your industries, 25 million for finance is different than a $25 million for a service business, right? So it's a little bit
Yeah.
different, right? Still not bad though. But we see it as a huge, or I see it because I'm the one who's really in charge of marketing for our company. We see it as a huge advantage, and we can really so when clients come to us, prospects come to us. Number one is they want to know that you're not a fly by night outfit, right?
Yeah.
Which is crazy because I'm actually giving them money. So, I mean,
Sure.
but whatever. Okay. So number one is, so the first part of my conversation is always about our credibility, that we're A+ rated by Better Business Bureau, or 5-star rated on Google reviews. That's my first comment, because I know what they want to know. They want to know, do they trust you?
Yes, correct.
I actually don't tell them very often that I'm one of the owners. I mean, I probably should, but I do that on occasion if something comes up. But
Sure.
so to me, the reason why it's important that I get on the phone, or somebody gets on the phone with good qualified prospects, is to build trust.
Yes.
Right. And so and it just seems that that's the only way technology is so driving our business. I'm saying everybody's business, that you can use the human element as a huge strategic advantage in your business.
Yes, absolutely. So if you think about it, and we did research for my third book, DNA of Customer Experience: How Emotions Drive Value. We did a research with London Business School to look at the 20 emotions that drive value. And when I say value, I'm talking about revenue growth, et cetera, et cetera. Things like increased loyalty, repeat business, those types of things. And trust is one of those foundational emotions. Okay. The issue then becomes, once you've got that trust, is how do you layer on top of that? So, there are a lot of organizations that I wouldn't trust as far as I could throw them.
Yeah.
And there are other organizations that, I do trust, but, so, I mean, I trust Amazon. I don't ever speak to anybody.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Because their service is so great. They just deliver. So, like, I'll tell you one company I don't trust, and it's in your neck of the woods: BP, British Petroleum.
Sure.
I hate them.
Yeah.
You're talking about the biggest con artists in the world when they had the BP oil spill, and then they were telling us they're the biggest, cleanest company in the world, and their logos are green. It's just baloney.
Yeah. No, I understand, and therefore, when you actually break it down and you go, well, let's examine the word trust. What does that mean? Well, it means that I do what I say I'm going to do.
Yeah,
I'm dealing with somebody that I think is trustworthy, and not only do I think they're trustworthy, they are doing. So they said they'd phone me back by Tuesday, and they phoned me back by Tuesday.
Yeah.
They said that. Our web designer said to me the other day, he said, "Look, don't let me do any design work because I'm not very good at that." And I thought, yeah, that's good. Telling me you're not very good at that aspect of it, because that builds my trust up in
instant credibility.
So trust is the baseline. It's then what do you layer on top of that? And it's a bit like, you've no doubt heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yep.
Where trust is the baseline. And the next layer starts to get into things like feeling cared for. Okay, so do you get straight into business with your customers, or do you have a chat with them when they talk about? Are you one of the key drivers that came out of the research that we did is caring for a customer as a person, and the as a person is important. So do you know the names of some of your customers' kids? Do you know if their wife's not very well or something like that? And that, again, if you go back to what we talked about at the beginning, it is something that small businesses are good at because they've got that personal relationship. The challenge becomes when you start to scale things, and I'm sure some of your listeners are thinking, yeah, that's okay, Stephen, but actually I want to grow it to £100 million and I don't want to be. So the question then becomes, well, how can I bring in people and give them so what type of person do I bring in? Well, actually, I would suggest it's got to be somebody with a high degree of emotional intelligence.
Yes.
So, don't just necessarily look at them for your industry, but pick them from that someone's got a high degree of emotional intelligence. And how do I give them the space just to get on with people and understand the customer, and let them talk to their customer about sport or whatever it is, or fishing or whatever it is that they do, because that builds that personal relationship with them, and then you can start to understand them at a much deeper level.
Yeah, I want to circle back to something else you said too, and that is emotions. Like this, the research that you were doing. I think one of the things that I don't do it very often, but I let's
Sure.
just say I let me pat myself on the back about this. I think it's one thing that that I do really, really well, and that is in a good way elicit. That's all right. The right word. Elicit
Illicit, yeah.
emotions in a positive way. So I'll give you an example. So I personally and passionately believe that every business should have a line of credit. And the reason being is that over my 25 years, I've either had a line of credit or I had a problem with a line of credit. And to be more specific, I I know what it's like to get a line of credit with a bank, and it's complete torture. It's torture.
Sure.
Okay. And also you think you can get a line of credit with a bank, and you really can't. They make it so hard. Okay. So, and the
Yeah.
other thing is, I've gotten caught with my pants down when I had a line of credit, and it's kind of on a different note where I got caught by surprise. I didn't have enough. I was about to miss payroll, and I went to the bank and I said I had a great business, and I said I need that increase in my line. We're going to be short on payroll, and they said, okay, we'll let you know in 30 days. I'm like, no, my payroll is due on Friday, right now. So
Sure.
our clients go through this every day. Okay.
Yes.
Now, that theme of passion, line of credit, a great backup plan, not only does it come across in my speaking pattern with our clients, and I'm not selling
Sure.
people, okay, I don't do that,
Sure.
but I make them aware of the value of having a backup plan. But it also comes across in everything that we communicate, from our website to our marketing material to our advertisements. It's the theme there. It's soliciting an emotion. And I'll tell everybody out there, I often correlate it to life insurance.
Sure.
And when life insurance people sell life insurance, they make you aware of the repercussions. And I'm going to tell you,
Yes.
my listeners know this. My wife passed away last year unexpectedly after
I'm
I
sorry
was married
about
for 26 years. Thank you. She had life insurance. I had life insurance. And I'm going to be honest with you. I have money, but it made a difference.
that. Sure.
My kids and I went on a $30,000 vacation to Kenya.
Sure.
And I didn't even
Sure.
think seconds about it because it was
No.
a life insurance
Sure.
policy, right?
Sure. Sure.
So
Yeah.
thank God I got it in place, because it did make things a little easier. I could really spend money on the
Sure.
kids. I spent
Sure.
$100,000 on the kids between the time she
Sure.
died and now, right?
Well, that's great.
So
That's great.
anyway, so I want to bring out the
But
idea
I
that
think.
sorry, go
Sorry,
ahead.
go on.
No, I was
That's
just
all right. I think what you're talking about is, I would put it down to one word, which is empathy.
yes,
Okay, that you're empathetic, which doesn't mean to say that you have to give whoever you're being empathetic to whatever they want.
no,
Okay,
no.
your
I'd be out of business.
empathy, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
So empathy effectively is that you understand the situation the customer has been in. The other word that you used earlier, which is intuitive. So, as I mentioned to you earlier, we do this podcast called The Intuitive Customer. And one of the reasons it's called intuitive is that the way that human beings make decisions, okay, is two ways: intuitively and rationally. Okay, so the intuitive system, it basically means that you're making an instant gut reaction. Now, why am I telling you this in the context of our conversation? What people are doing when they're talking to you, Stephen, is they're making an intuitive decision about, do I trust this guy? Is he telling me that he's very environmentally friendly and we've got a green logo, but I can see that they're not very environmentally friendly as a BP, but they got a green logo, and therefore there's some inconsistency there, to say the least. Okay, but do I get a sense that this person passionately believes in what they're talking about and has got the experience? Does he understand where I'm coming from? And it's all of those human traits. And those signals that we give are picked up in an instant. We know that, where how people make decisions is that it's not just on what people are saying, the words that they were using, but we know that somehow 80% of all decision making is based on body language. Okay. So again, go back to, I walk in at night and I say hello to my wife. It's not just the word that she uses, it's the way she's
Yeah.
acting, the speed and cadence, etc., which makes me as a human being interpret what she is saying. And therefore I can make a decision about how do I act now. So one of the key words I think in that, empathy piece is, and we did a podcast on this a little while ago, just the word listening, the skill of listening. I always remember I was taught that you have two ears and one mouth, and you should use them in that ratio. So understanding and listening to your customer about what what's important for them, and understanding, because that starts to show that you care because you're investing time in listening to them, and then being empathetic. And I would suggest a lot of that is what you were talking about, that it
Yeah, I think it's true.
naturally comes out in you.
Yeah, I think it's true, and I think I do. I'm a very empathetic person, so I think the other key is, let's use the word intuitive. Let's go back to that word that you said, intuitive. To me, someone is accurately intuitive when you have experience and
Yeah.
in the area. So when you are out there on a consistent basis, listening to customers, finding out the prospect experience in your flow, your sales flow, when you are constantly close and you have your finger on the business, your intuition allows you to make much more accurate predictions,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Versus make
Absolutely.
right versus, and I think that's the problem business leaders have. You are making big time strategic decisions based on your intuition, and hopefully not just based on data, because I think that's the big problem nowadays. And I believe me, I love data, but I think that there needs to be that combination of experience dealing with customers, prospects, and all those other things, combining that with data to make strategic decisions for your company. And small businesses, let's face it, Colin, right? They do it better, right?
Sure.
Because they're
Yeah.
closer, right? Um,
Yes. And I think the issue for me is that, so data is great. The issue becomes, how do you interpret it?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And therefore, we would advocate that you need to look at it through the eyes of this more understanding customer behavior. And we would talk about this, not just us, but behavioral science. So understanding customer behavior at a much deeper level. Okay. The other thing that I've just read a really interesting book called The Myth of Experience. Okay. And here's the nub of the book. The authors talk about a kind learning environment and a wicked learning environment. A kind, and the danger is that we make decisions thinking that we have got all of the information when we haven't. Okay. So we think that we know exactly what the customer wants, but we don't, because we're missing out on the fact that this has just happened. They've just missed their payroll, or they're going to miss their payroll, and that's a key piece of information that the person didn't know about, whatever else. So I guess the point I'm trying to get to is you've got to start to ask your question: why is the customer really doing this? What is the real driver? What they say may not be the real driver. And you, like with Lorraine, you've got to look underneath the skin of that, and you've got to go, what's the real driver? Is there something happening with this customer here that I don't know about? And it could be something personal that they're having that is driving their decisions. And if you can tap into that to try to find the true motivations, then that becomes the key thing. Does that make
So I'm
sense?
going to ask you this last question because we're kind of running up against the time limit, but time. But so all our listeners that are there, all these business people, owners, give us one thing that you think, one of the most important things that you think that someone should do to, really learn more about their customer experience.
I would go back to what you mentioned earlier, which is ideally watch the customer in their own environment and question, why are they doing it? Okay. And don't go into that with a preconceived idea that you know the answer. Okay. Look at what they do, not what they say they're going to do. Okay. And that's where the data can come in useful. It's a customer may say, yeah, I was just about to order that and then I did this. But, obviously data on the websites, you can now start to see which pages people exit from and everything else. But it's understanding understanding things at that basic level of behavior. So look at what your customers are doing rather than what they say they are doing, and ask yourself, why are they doing that?
Yeah, and I'm going to add my 2 cents to what you're saying too, Colin, and that is, I am a very structured person, so like I actually, every 2 weeks I take an hour and a half out of my week. It's on a Friday after lunch. I have it on my calendar. The reminder goes off, and I go to a coffee shop and I work on my strategic plan. Okay, what I would suggest to our listeners is do that same thing for half a day, once every 2 weeks with your customers. Like go over and say, okay, what customers do we land this week? Right? Maybe you call them up and talk to them, or maybe you talk to someone that's been a customer for a year, or maybe you go talk to your salesperson and say, tell me about this customer. Why did they become a customer? Just be curious. Whatever question that comes to your mind, all our listeners, you're all bright. Okay. Go be curious, but put it on your calendar, right? Put it on your calendar for 3 hours, for half a day.
Yes.
This is the time I spend with learning, understand my customers. I think if you were to do that, I mean, I'd be a big proponent of two things. Your strategic plan, going over it every once in a while. Of course, having a strategic plan. And number two is understanding your customers, right?
Yes.
Right? I mean, geez, if you're doing those two things on a consistent basis, your business is going to do pretty well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And going back to the name of the show, the looking at those hidden things. So looking at that from that behavioral aspect, and not just thinking that you're not just thinking you know the answer, and that becomes the key.
Well, it was a great podcast. I really, really enjoyed it. I learned a lot. It reminds me too what I need to do a good job with. And so I'd like to thank so very much Colin Shaw from Beyond Philosophy for coming on to today's podcast. If you like today's podcast, please feel free to share it with a friend. and also subscribe on your favorite podcasting app. Also, if you really like today's podcast or past ones, and you're willing, you would give us a 5-star review. If you could please just go onto your app and give us a 5-star review, that really helps us get, our show's already in the top 5% of podcasts for entrepreneurship, and we'd like to get it up to 1%, and they use that for algorithms. Of course, if you are looking for a line of credit for your business, you can feel free to give us a call at 862-207-4118 or visit our website at fscreditline.com, fscreditline.com. Colin, if anyone wants to get in touch with you, how would they go about doing that?
Go to our website, which is beyondphilosophy.com. Or our podcast is the Intuitive Customer Podcast that's available every normal places.
Yeah. And, just to wrap it up for today, I think I did the wrap up already. And that is, boy, you can't go wrong by spending time with your prospect or customer experiences. And if you do that, I mean, it just makes a big difference, not only in servicing your clients, closing more deals, but also pivoting sometimes when your business isn't doing so well. Sometimes you can see another business opportunity. And I've done that. I came up with a company called Credential Agent because I was inside listening to a client, and I asked this question about this one problem that they were having. Hey, who's doing that, solving that problem now? It was only because I was in there listening. So maybe that's the big part of today's theme, right? Listening. Right, which is something that Colin told us as well. So, yep. All right, very good, Colin. It was really good to see you. And
thanks
everybody, everybody in this part of the country, summer is still here, and get out there, enjoy yourself. You guys work so many hours. Don't forget to take good care of yourself as well at the same time. We're doing more of this than this to make money. Everybody have a good day.